Hi everyone, it's Coach Fred here, and we're going to be talking about the math practice, the SAT Practice Test 3 Math Non-Calculator from the official College Board Study Guide. All right, so that question in the book says it's number 14, so it's Math Non-Calc. So we're at the point where these last two questions before they move on to the free response are actually usually the harder ones. So I don't want you to think that this is just an easy problem, although it doesn't have to be hard. So what are the solutions to 3x squared plus 12x plus 6 equals 0? So if you've been watching my videos, you know that this one says specifically what are the solutions, which means that we're likely going to use algebra. So I'm going to be solving. Whereas many of the questions we're just looking for equivalence, this one we're going to be solving. Now I look at my answers, and my answers are clearly not whole numbers, so this is not where I'm going to plug in answers. All right, so first I approach the problem by looking and saying to myself, what type of equation is it? This equation is quadratic. How do I know that? Well, when I look at an equation, I look at the highest exponent. And in this case, the highest exponent of x is a 2, which tells me it's quadratic. So I know that I have several methods of solving. I have factoring, quadratic formula, completing the square, graphing, could use my calculator, but this is non-calculator, so I can't use the calc. So the first thing that I'd want to do would be to simplify it. Always want to simplify an equation if you can on this test and anytime, because it just makes it simpler. And I notice they're all divisible by 3, so I'm going to divide every single term by 3. That's going to give me x squared plus 4x plus 2 equals 0. So normally I would jump to factoring, but on question number 14, I'm guessing it's not factorable. And yeah, I can see that there's no factors of 2 that are going to add to 4. So that leaves me with the question, what do? Do I use the quadratic formula, or do I use completing the square? Well, I use completing the square if the coefficient in front of x is 1 and this is an even number. I think it might be easier here. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to complete the square. Now, teachers teach this differently. I'm going with the way I teach it. Your teacher may teach it slightly differently. That's okay. Lots of approaches to math, which is why it's so awesome. So I'm going to first subtract the constant to the other side. That's giving me x squared plus 4x equals negative 2. All right, then the process of completing the square is I want to create a perfect square trinomial here on the left, right? So I could take half of 4, which is 2, and I square it, which is 4, and I'm going to add it to the right side of the equation. But remember, I can't just add something to an equation without balancing it on the other side, so I have to add 4 here. So I have to add 4 to both sides. All right, so now we've got a perfect square trinomial. If you've been watching my videos or you take my class, you know that that's called a PST. And a perfect square trinomial, if I want to put it in factored form, it factors to the square of a binomial. Always x, so the square root of the first term, the sine of the middle term, and the square root of the last term. All right, and then I simplify the other side, which is going to give me 2. Wow, so now I'm really nice and ready. I'm going to erase this so it's out of my way now. I'm ready to finish solving this equation. So to finish solving this equation, I'm going to take the square root of both sides. Now, when I take the square root of both sides, I can't forget I've got a plus or minus root 2. I've got to take the positive and the negative of that right side because there could be 2 values if I square them that would give me that. All right, then I'm going to subtract 2. I always bring it into the front of the equation, so it would be negative 2 plus or minus root 2. And then I look for my answer, and there's my answer, A. All right, hopefully that was helpful and a good review of completing the square, because the completing the square is a really great technique for solving quadratics, putting things in vertex form, finding the equation of a circle when it's given to you in general form. So lots of uses for completing the square. All right, guys, have a great night.